Je suis Julie.
Hello, I'm Julie, and I'm Marie-Andrée. We're happy to be able to share our work method with you, which is collaborative creativity. But first, let's just adjust this. We have a slight difference in height, so it's not going to be easy to go back and forth. So welcome to Montreal. And just a few words about Edifica. Imagine that under the same roof we have architects, engineers, and designers for a total of 248 employees, and our offices are mainly in Montreal, New York City, Port-au-Prince, and St. Louis. Edifica is a multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary firm with an integrated approach, with BIM at the very heart of its activities. Our BIM integration is scalable, and it's an evolving process which we began in around 2010 with the 222 project, and we've continued this with several other planets, including the Planetarium 2013, and the Wilder Building in 2015. The project we'd like to discuss with you today is one further step in BIM integration. As you know, traditionally, you prepare a design and you work hard and then you move straight into execution. With BIM, we realized that we began to work on a production model versus a design model, and the two of them were alternating constantly, and each was improving the other. With this rapid, iterative, repetitive process, we were able to extract the most up-to-date information that was best coordinated at any moment in time. To draw a parallel with this consolidation project, we were consolidating our views through virtual reality. In the project context, it's about the Complexes Desjardins revitalization. It dates back to the 1960s, which is now part of the modern heritage of the city of Montreal. It's regulated by special project regulations. It's part of a new district inaugurated since 2003, which is called the Entertainment District. So our mandate was to integrate Complexes Desjardins into its neighborhood and to be able to demonstrate all of its values and functionality. As you may recall, Complexes Desjardins has a central square area inside, which is often used for various events. It's basically a shopping mall with also storefronts, 3 office towers, and a hotel. It's all connected to the underground city in Montreal. We began our study in 2014 with a master plan, and then we developed a technical feasibility study, and then plans and specs. Last year, 2 phases were in construction, and this year we're in phase 3 that's currently underway. So there were 5 different strategic interventions for Complexes Desjardins. 3 were active. The first was divided into 2 construction phases, and the second and third were twinned into the 3rd construction phase. So while the first one was being built, we were working on the concepts and other elements for the overall project vision and to ensure that everything was consistent. And for the last one, we divided into 13 stages of execution to carry it all out. And the deliveries were all simultaneous over a scale of a year. And we wondered how on earth we were going to be able to communicate. It was such a complex operation. How could we do this the most efficiently as possible? So we began with more traditional methods such as drawing, hand sketching, and physical modeling, and physical mock-ups, and then photos. Basically for more fundamental design phases, and you're kind of thinking about all kinds of different directions. And after we began that, we started a visualization model based on a parametric model, but we couldn't be sure how accurate it was. After we began that, we also looked at scatter cloud or cloud point, points cloud rather, for a more accurate model. So we would move forward with our visualization and then have the parametric model follow as our decisions were being made. And then we added exploration using generative design for graphics and for surface motifs. And then we had 3D printing, which we were testing for our surface patterning. Then we had a 4D model so that we could see the complex phasing of the different work. And then it was all visualized largely in virtual reality. As I was mentioning earlier, this was an opportunity for us to combine our views and avoid redundancy of 3D views and all the various renderings. Our first intervention in which we used virtual reality was to reposition Complexes Desjardins on the main street of the entertainment district, which is St. Catherine Street. So there were already storefronts. So we wanted to have a sort of an urban loggia, and each area is defined by a high-performance concrete surround with a beam so that we could have uniform signage and also have rain gutters to redistribute the water. Then we had a movable technical floor at the same level as the inside of each of the stores. Every loggia was really similar to one in a theater, and they have automatic blinds and they're heated. So here's animation with our 2D visualization, but we still saw that we couldn't tell what was going to feel like on the terrace. You need to feel good. You need to. How do you know that it's going to feel right? So the strategy was to have fixed virtual reality views. So using a telescopic photosphere. So this gave us an opportunity to see all the different elements, even though we already had decided that we wanted to create an arch and that we wanted to have some glass, but we didn't really understand the dimensions and the materiality. So we could look at various different options and see immediately how they could interact with each other and what the atmosphere would feel like. Because in the media, the conventional media, what's often missing is this ability to see how it feels to be somewhere. We often talk about virtual reality presence. For us, this meant that rather than looking at a picture and trying to say, do I like what I see, or is this what I want to see, we were saying, do I feel good here? Does it feel right? And that's what you can't get with any other medium. So we are no longer looking at something, we are inside of something. For our second intervention, this was our interface with Jean Mance Street, where the hotel's entrance is. The hotel and Complexes Desjardins have two different co-owners. So Jean Mance is now facing Place des Festivals, and the hotel we had to convince them to unify themselves. We wanted the two owners to see this as a common project. And we wanted to show them that they could really have an impact for the street corner and on Jean Mance as a whole. So this is a different angle of the same project. The technology works here, but it didn't work at our offices initially. Anyhow, this is a first version. You're just seeing one of the alterations that we used to make our points. So to convince the hotel, the first thing to do was use virtual reality to show them the impact of the project without their presence, with a line between the two owners versus a unified project. You could really see the difference between the two when they were wearing the virtual reality glasses. And the owner is European, so we were able to send the information over and really put them into place things in their proper context of the neighborhood and see what impact there could be. And we did receive approval from the hotel for this. Again, we use the same strategy, virtual reality. In other words, the stereo photospheres. We took strategic points that we wanted to validate for a user. The idea was to put ourselves in the user's shoes. What do you feel when you're at different spots? And what would our client see? And is that what all the parties want? We want everyone to be aligned with the same vision. At this point, the parametric model had caught up to the visualization model, so there was some coordination, which made it possible for us to be sure that what we were showing was really accurate. So our validation caught up with us at that point in the process. Thus, we were able to be sure that we had the atmosphere we were looking for and that, in fact, what we were seeing was faithful to reality. For our last intervention, now that we had connected the two main streets with the neighborhood, we had to connect the inside area of the Complexes Desjardins to the general Place des Festivals outside. So we again had to do some convincing of the owners to develop a new axis in Complexes Desjardins, and an axis that had never occurred before. So here is a comparison. This is the existing, and here's an interactive model of our intervention. So when you come into the Jean Mance entrance, you could see the regular view. It's rather difficult to understand for people, even if we were showing them the corridor. There was no point of repair. So I thought that this was a good comparison between the 3 degrees of freedom, as we call it, just turning your head around and moving through space in virtual reality. So if you think of the earlier animation you saw of St. Catherine Street, you saw that visually it looked simpler. And that's because you have to have 30 images per second. You have to have separate renderings for each image. Every time there's a change, you have to readjust. So this is a real-time model. You put a camera in, and you let it move, and you're filming in real time. So as long as your real time has been done, you can extract whatever video you want, whatever image you want, to do all kinds of iterations. But you can also make all kinds of changes in terms of texture, lighting. I could see that people who went through my screen, behind my screen, were making many more valid comments instead of saying, oh, what's this or what's happening here, when you had regular screen renderings of software modeling. They had a much more specific idea of what we were trying to do. So here, the model was in the client's hands, so I had to test for collisions to make sure they weren't walking through any walls or floors. It's just like we do for video games. We wanted to emphasize the demolishing of a beam that was very important. We wanted to make it into something fun. So we're saying, we'll demolish it, we'll have it explode. So it was a way of making it more fun. Now, as I said earlier, this interactive experience was in the client's hands, so this requires being there with them. Not every client is used to walking around in, like in a typical video game. So we created instructions. I created instructions which I integrated directly into the application, which we delivered by USB key with the hard copy as well, and they were able to visit at their own pace. So we did everything to make sure that they would understand. So the app begins with a guided tour, as you saw earlier in the video, and then they regain control and they can explore literally by walking through the corridor and going from side to side in either direction. But also they could use points that we targeted in advance. So we try to support all levels of expertise when you're having kind of interactive experience. Here you have the what's behind the application. It's a blueprint. If you're familiar with Dynamo or Grasshopper, it's a similar system for visual programming. It's fairly simple, actually, when it's properly organized. So here you have all of the logic, when to start the video, how to stop the video, what what to press to have what happen, how to move from A to B, etc. So the experience led us to some conclusions that we'd like to share with you. First of all, is this just useful for client presentations, Julie? No, virtual reality really made it possible for us to develop all kinds of options. And we were able to show clients how things were evolving fairly quickly, and we got client buy-in for every phase of putting the pieces together very quickly. And we also brought the glasses to the city in terms of any changes that we wanted to make. And also having a more digital project meant that we could really see the integration, what level, what density, what kind of light was there going to be, what kind of lighting did we have. We could even convince our president to be sure that everybody was comfortable with what we were proposing for Complexes Desjardins. And on my part, I can ask you what the impact was on our work and our processes. Well, I think that virtual reality is on a spectrum between the abstract and the concrete. If you look at our traditional methods or regular plans, you're at one extremity of the abstract, whereas when you're talking about virtual reality, you're talking about concrete experience. So each approach has its pros, but if you combine the two, you really can get a synthetic vision of the total intervention, and you can also see what it feels like to be in that place. So I think they're really complementary, and it's an opportunity for us to change the way we see things. To my mind, the fact that we are not looking at something through a rectangle, or we're not seeing a picture through a rectangle, is maybe something that could make it possible for us to design differently and even think differently about our projects. And what are the limitations of digital tools and equipment? Well, if we're talking about visual reality, obviously the limitation is maturity, which is not yet has not yet been achieved. The average client or collaborator at Edifica may think that things are easy to do when in fact they're very difficult. But that's something that can change overnight. You have to be constantly reviewing and revising when you start a project, or because maybe the application and the tools have to be updated, but also, have you done your updates, or have the applications changed? Things change fast. So there is necessary adaptation and constant reassessment required of our methodology. When I say constant, I say, are we really using the best method, or has something better come up since last time? Things happen really quickly. Now, perhaps only time will tell whether the virtual reality vision is not just a new gadget, not just something fun, but actually contributes something. Some people are not so sure. I imagine that by being doubters, even when they're dealing with a very faithful reality simulation, people always worry if it's really going to look like that when it's built. So are we just trying to seduce people with pretty pictures, or are we actually showing something and demonstrating something that's reliable? I think perhaps maybe only time will tell, and perhaps our experiences and habits will dictate that as well. So what about you, Julie? Do you think that virtual reality can contribute to facilitating building projects? Yes, well, through various phases. I've seen it over various phases in various years. We were able to demonstrate regularly because there were changes. Personnel changed over time. We could bring people up to date and quickly, and especially if things were urgent. So it was really a terrific tool. What would be good to improve in our next process is really for contractors to use the glasses more. We use the glasses a lot for clients and approvals required for the process, but we'd like to use it more on site, because 75 pages of plans to analyze takes a long time, and I think that it would have been easier to imagine the final project and the issues in the entertainment district when there's only certain areas and times for construction. there's a lot of consequences on everybody. So I think it was really a useful tool from beginning to end. Do you think that this experience is an immersive experience or just a tool for validation and approval? I think that virtual reality is a medium that is necessarily immersive by its very nature. I think that that dimension is going to be there. It can be used to our benefit, to our advantage. And if we do use it, well, if we have an immersion into something which is faithful to reality and accurate, and if we've done our homework so that we've properly synchronized with our production model and our design model, then this becomes really a very powerful approval tool. Well, thanks for listening. Do you have any questions?